Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm honored to bring you UFO entity Enigma, in which we explore various facets of the UFO entity Enigma, and we also tackle some of the difficult questions. Tonight, the question we are tackling is, are there indeed tricksters that you need to be aware of? And are there indeed gamesters who like to play games on a cosmic level with the humans that they interact with? And with us, we have the one, the only Tim Swartz.
Yes, and thank heavens, Hercules, there is just one of me. So
Well, I'm
I'm a,
honored
I'm
that
a
you're here.
well, I'm a trickster in my own right. So yeah.
Very good. So we'll get some keen insights. And the one and only Setna Comwest of Knemet, also known as Michael K. Waterman. Greetings and welcome, Setna.
That's me, I think. And we're three tricksters to begin with ourselves, so that'll be cool.
So we'll get that perspective as well, and I'm looking forward. I just want to start with a brief story. I've shared this story like everywhere, so I'll share it again tonight. When my wife and I lived in Pennsylvania, in the Poconos, in the forested hills of that area, we had guests come over frequently. We investigated the paranormal a lot, and every one of our guests talked about our gray Siamese cat. The thing is that we didn't have a gray Siamese cat. It was a ghost. We had cats, and the cats were physical cats, but this cat wasn't. But you could see it at the top of staircases. You could feel it brush against you on your leg, and so on. And the haunting lasted for, I think, around a year and a half, until one of our cats got pregnant. And then the ghost kitty went into the litter of kittens that were in the womb of the cat that got pregnant. And it didn't behave like a kitten after it was born. And I call it Ghost because that's what I named the ghost, of course. And it would try to walk over to me before it learned to walk. And it never behaved like a kitten. It always behaved like a cat. And as it got older, I would tell it that I know why somebody offed its life prematurely and causes to reincarnate, because it's a very smart cat, but it's a pain in the ass. So Ghost is still with us, and she's now, I believe, 19.
Heavens.
We've had her for a very long time, and she is still with us. But it took me a while to acknowledge her as a cat. I knew I had a ghost cat, but I didn't know if it was actually a ghost cat, because it's been my experience that spirits and ghosts and elementals can appear in a variety of guises, just like the gods can appear in a wide variety of guises. So I knew that whatever this was, this appeared as a cat, and it behaved like a cat. But was it a cat? I don't know. I gave it a lot of time till I finally decided that yes, it's a cat. And now it is a cat, in fact, and we've had her for quite a while. So I am very reluctant to take a spirit at its presentation or at its word. And initially, I will ignore the spirit, even though it's trying to get my attention. But I've not discovered what a lot of people warn against is mischievous spirits who try to mislead us and send us off in different directions. Because in my way of interacting with the universe, if a god tells me something to do, I account that as a god's opinion as to what I should do. So I extend that to any and all entities, and I don't do something just because an invisible spirit tells me to do it, or I don't believe something just because an invisible spirit presents it or tells it to me. I give everything time, and there's some spirits I've interacted with briefly for a short period, others for very many years. And that's the true of incarnate individuals. They're incarnate individuals who I've become friends with. They're incarnate individuals who I'm acquainted with. They're incarnate individuals that I've worked with. I have a lot of relationships, some close and some not so close, but it's the same thing. I accord them the same veracity as I do with the spirits. So I don't think I've ever encountered a spirit that's tried to deliberately lead me astray or fool me or lead me into dangerous doctrines or anything like that. So I'm curious to find out how these spirits that other people are reporting relate, and what are they seeing that I'm not seeing, perhaps? So we will start with Tim, since you are an incarnate trickster by your own by your own declaration. How does that work?
Well, Hercules, perhaps before I get into this, and you may be more knowledgeable on the whole mythology of the tricksters. Maybe, if our audience isn't familiar with this, I mean, do you know, uh, like where the whole idea of the trickster comes from, and how it relates to the myths and legends that not only that we grew up on, but all generations past grew up on as well.
Sure, there are in mythology there are plenty of trickster beings. Like for instance, in North American mythology, there's Coyote, who's a trickster, and there are other animal spirits that are tricksters. In Norse mythology, there's Loki, and Loki is a shapeshifter, like all the other gods are shapeshifters, but he uses his shapeshifting abilities to mislead or to play tricks. So the archetype is there in all the different mythologies, and the Greek gods too could be very tricksy in how they chose to do things. The Greek gods are beings of light, and they're shapeshifters. That's a commonality in um, their mythology as well. And they've been known to kind of stretch the truth or to deceive on occasion. It's even reported in the Iliad, where Zeus, I believe it was, gave false oracles to people to throw them off track.
Mhm.
And people have prayed for the gods to mislead individuals, and the gods listened to those prayers and misled individuals. So the mythologies warn you of that happening. Zeus was also known to appear as the husband of certain women that he wanted to sleep with, most notably Alcmene, the mother of Hercules. Her husband was away at war, and Zeus appeared as the husband and made the night last 3 nights long. And they had a lot of sexual relations. And then when the real Amphitryon returned from war, he was surprised to find his wife saying, "Oh, but you came back already," and he knew something had happened. So the concept is there in all mythologies, and sometimes the tricking is for a good reason. Sometimes it doesn't seem to be for a good reason at all. So it's part of the stories, and our folklore is full of these tales as well. But I just like people in my waking life, I don't have a lot of people who are deliberately trying to trick me. At least I haven't. I've been tricked a few times, but a very small handful compared to the other interactions I've had. And I don't really feel that any of the people or entities I'm interacting with at present are tricking me. They represent different perspectives and uh, different ways of viewing the world, but they're not deliberately trying to trick me. And I welcome other perspectives. So if people don't agree with me, that's fine. They're showing me what they see based on where they've stood and where they stand. So I welcome the diversion thing. I'm not all set on how I view the world until now, because that's changed several times as I've moved through life.
Well, I think that a lot of people um, look at the trickster as like a clown and a deceiver, and somebody who may know better can correct me on this, but I think that a lot of certain Native American and First Nation traditions view the trickster can also be a teacher, that it's required basically that a person just can't be handed information outright, that they have to earn it, so to speak, and that and also that um, laughter, I guess, is plays very predominantly in prayers to deities. that you can't just go and be all solemn and solemn, when you're a prey to the deities, but there has to be a joy with it as well, and that supposedly was part of the trickster element. And I got to be thinking also that you look at say like modern pop culture, and you see a lot of tricksters uh, uh, in it. The first thing that comes to my mind would be like Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny,
Okay,
Daffy
Ralph.
Duck. I mean, those are your classical tricksters, and who knows if the cartoonists and the writers who originally wrote these cartoons ever had that in mind. But boy, they certainly play that role perfectly. And I think also of um, the cartoon One Froggy Night. And I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's the one where the construction worker comes across this like a time capsule box in a building that he was demolishing, and out comes this frog that at first just acts like a frog, but then all of a sudden it breaks into like this big song and dance routine, singing "Hello, my baby."
Uh-huh.
So
I
this
love that
guy,
cartoon.
yeah, well, I mean, this guy, I mean, he's seeing money in his head, and so I mean, he puts on, he gets this big venue and spends all of his money to put this frog on show, and then the frog, of course, doesn't do anything. It just croaks like a frog, and so anytime nobody else is watching, this frog is just singing and dancing to this guy, and I mean, and what a trickster! Now, this one, I suppose this is a teachable moment, is not to be gullible like Hercules was saying with the spirits. You can't believe everything that is presented to you, no matter how tempting and how truthful this information may seem. This is something that we have seen with paranormal phenomena and the UFO phenomena almost from the very beginning. And I mean, and we've talked about uh, Emmanuel Swedenborg,
Mhm.
on the show before. And I mean, one of the things that he said, and I'm paraphrasing it basically, but I mean, he said, "Don't believe anything that the spirits tell you, because they lie. They're not truthful. You're going to get all kinds." And he wrote this long before the modern age of spiritualism and Ouija boards and things like that. But he said, don't listen to anything they say. Don't believe their stories of what the next world looks like. Because it's all a trick. It's all lies. And you've seen this. Um, I can think of all kinds of different cases where um, people have said that they were in communication uh, with discarnate spirits in various fashions, Ouija boards, automatic writing. I mean, even trance mediums,
Mhm.
where the spirits would give just, I mean, you could write a book from all the information that was given by these spirits, especially, like where they lived, when they lived, their names, wives, sons and daughters, where they were buried, everything like that. Well, if anybody would then go and look up this information, probably, 90% of the time, they wouldn't be able to find anything that was truthful about this information. But the manner in which this stuff is received, I mean, it's no wonder that people end up being fooled because, I mean, if you're getting, especially when you have something, say, like a trance medium,
Mhm.
where the voice is coming out of the medium's mouth. And a lot of times, I mean, it's not even the medium's voice. I mean, it's the voice of somebody else, and they're giving you these amazing details about their lives and how they lived and what school that they went to, it's going to be hard not to believe it. And but if you do your homework and try to vet this information, you find that it's probably not true. And you're left to wonder why. What's the purpose? Is it just some, you know, is there just a bunch of spirits who are just having a giggle, on our behalf, and that's what they do. They just hang around waiting for the opportunity to do a little improv. That's what it is. It's like a spiritual improv group, and they're given one word and then they go with it and make up stories. That's what it seems like almost. Um, but you also have seen this with the UFO phenomena when it comes to actual contacts with the alleged pilots of these craft. Um, you look at the contactee movement from the 1950s, especially. And I do think that some of these contactees, I mean, they weren't being truthful. That they were just in it for the money and the fame, which they soon found out that really only a couple of them ever actually made any kind of living off of it. But there were others that I think really were earnest with their stories, that they had actual experiences. But I mean, they were told that these beings were coming from planets like Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, and were given all kinds of details. Again, kind of like these spirit communications. I mean, the information was very detailed. Um, I mean, right down to the type of utopian communities that these space beings came from. We don't have any money, we don't need any laws because everybody does just what is right because that's the creator's way and things like that. And now we know, of course, that Venus, Mars, and Jupiter probably, I mean, not probably, I mean, they're not the the places that at least physical creatures like we are can live on, which has led some people to postulate that, well, maybe these guys were coming from other realities, or they lived underground on these planets. I mean, there's all kinds of explanations, but the first thing that always comes to my mind with this is that this is this is a trickster element at play here. And I think also to some of these contactees that were receiving prophecies that, as long as they were keeping these prophecies to themselves, then the prophecies were coming true. Plane crashes, earthquakes, the normal thing. But then I think when these people got really roped in to the whole situation, then they started hearing stories about, we're going to make a mass landing on such and such date. And you need to tell everyone, tell the media, uh, 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 put it in the newspapers. Everybody show up for the UFOs to land and the space people to reveal themselves. And then, of course, when they do, nothing ever happens. And then that's it for them. They're branded hoaxers or crazy. And oddly enough, usually the contacts disappear as well. The job's done. We made this guy look like a fool. But why? What was the reason for that? You know, um, it certainly wasn't to that guy's benefit. I mean, again, the only thing these people learned was don't trust anybody, don't trust anything, especially if it's coming from somebody who claims to have come out of a flying saucer. And it makes me wonder also, Hercules, these stories that we have heard over the years about, say, like a spacecraft landing at Air Force bases and Eisenhower showing up to meet these beings and signing treaties and things like that. Naturally, people, the skeptics will say, "Oh well, it's a hoax." I mean, people just making these up. It's just part of the whole just bullshit of ufology that we've heard time and again. And it makes me wonder, though, if one of the reasons that the various world governments have stayed so silent about the UFO phenomena is that some of these stories actually happened, and that the earthly representatives were told by these beings, yeah, we come from, say like the Pleiades and, such and such a thing. And, but then later they found out that none of this stuff was true, that the information that was being given by these so-called space people was just a load of crap. And then the policy was don't deal with them at all. Don't do anything. Don't acknowledge their existence. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell the civilian population that that it's real and that we're looking into it. Just deny everything. So I think that could be a possibility. That's one of the reasons for the whole UFO cover up is that fool me once, shame on shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me type of situation. Uh, but you also look at some of the other aspects of the UFO mythology. The Men in Black is another good one. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about. I mean, that Men in Black are poster children for the tricksters. Because you have these characters, and they're not always Men in Black. They come in all kinds of shapes and sizes and sexes as well. I mean, it's not entirely men, but they all seem to kind of follow the same sort of script, which is show up unexpectedly, act weird, look weird, leave behind some mysterious messages, possible veiled threats, usually telling the people, to get out of whatever line of investigation you're currently in, because it's dangerous and we'll come back and kill you and your pets. But then nothing happens. These guys go away, and eventually those who have had these experiences will write about it or tell others about it, and nothing really ever happens. So, and that's, there's that trickster element again. I suppose it would be different if after these threats and then somebody does talk, then they do come back and burn your house down or cut the brake lines of your car. But as far as I know, that hasn't happened. So that is the trickster at play. So now I'm not saying that every aspect of the UFO phenomena has some, is entirely paranormal and tricksterous and all that. It could be that whatever the trickster phenomena is, and and who knows that it is playing a role, a modern role, where it's using the UFO phenomena as part of its game. Now, someone like Jacques Vallée, he would say that this is that slow teaching element to us, that it's trying to teach us something, but it's, that it's playing the long game. It's not working within people's lifetimes, it's working within, like generations, hundreds, maybe thousands of years of slowly teaching us something. And, we only know just a minute amount of information about it, and it won't be until years from now, centuries from now, that we'll have a clearer picture of what's going on. I think that that's a possibility. But saying, I think, as a lot of people believe, that the entire UFO phenomena, the entire, say, like paranormal, spiritual types of phenomena are all entirely tricksteries, I think that's throwing out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. That you are just seeing that trickster element come into play with things that are currently resonating with us as a society, as as a culture. And right now, UFOs, I mean, that's pretty big, and it's gotten even bigger within the last 10 years or so. So I imagine that you're going to start seeing more of this trickster element starting to come into play, especially when you have got, and as you well know, there are elements in the Pentagon and within the intelligence community that are heavily influenced by the evangelical
Yes.
religious community. And they are very reluctant to take on investigation of the UFO phenomena because they fervently believe that this is a satanic type of deception going on. Based on their really, I mean, it's a modern viewpoint of Christianity, and really doesn't have much to do with the real traditions. So I imagine that you're going to start to see this trickster element start to come into play that will try to influence and confirm a lot of these people's beliefs. I don't know how that will play out, but you will probably start to see more articles, more reports that that are going to be that are going to be Hercules. I'm caught up on my words here. Are going to be geared towards this type of information, and it'll probably skew it quite a bit, because you've always had this battle, back and forth between the two major elements of the UFO phenomena. You've got the one where it's the completely skeptical attitude that UFOs don't exist. There's nothing real about it. It's all natural phenomena, hoaxes, or maybe some kind of man-made technical craft from either our country or some others. And then you have the extraterrestrial hypothesis, where people think that it's all entirely visitors from other planets. Well, and we've seen it working for a while, especially since the 1960s, that the UFO phenomena could be demonic in origin. And I suspect that you're going to start to see a resurgence, really, in this kind of belief, to the point where it's actually going to be written about in newspapers. Yeah, what are newspapers? You're going to start seeing them, online, YouTube channels and things like that, and people are really going to start to take it a lot more seriously, which then the phenomena will go and gear itself in that direction. And that's the interesting thing about the phenomena, Hercules. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there.
No, it's okay.
Uh,
I
Go
wish
ahead.
to do a longer show. I'm going to devote several shows just to this topic, because this is the conversation I've been aiming for since I started this series. Look at the different facets and then look at the gem. So, we only have like half an hour more, and I want to get Michael's
Yeah. Sorry, Michael. I didn't mean to
also.
step on your time.
Don't be ridiculous. It's all, I was listening very intently.
That is something that I've noticed as well, because I've explored this through a bunch of different paths. And when I was into the Norse stuff, I explored it in that way. When I was in the Celtic stuff, I explored it that way. I've been Greek my whole life, so that's been a constant thing. And also different systems of occultism that I've learned about and I've experimented with. The phenomenon, whatever it is very accommodating,
Hmm.
and it will communicate with you in whatever set of symbols you're most comfortable with. And once you encounter that a few times, you're talking to the same entities or the same whatever they are in different masks. Initially, it seems like they're lying, that they're deceiving you. But then it becomes very clear after a while that the intent is to communicate. And one of my theologians pointed out recently in a conversation on that show that in the Chaldean oracles, the goddess Hecate proclaims that they appear the way they appear because we expect them to appear in that guise. So I want to really explore the deception angle. I want to explore the communication angle, and I want us to gain a greater understanding. I have a lot of people who are into the cosmic spirituality, and we've had them on this forum and on very many others. And I've been trying to engage their space people in real world activities. Like, what are they doing other than telling us to love them and to pray to them? And that seems to be what they want us to do, or at least through some of their vehicles, that seems like what they want us to do. But okay, so love implies to me trust and rapport and a relationship of some sort, not just blindly loving somebody because they tell you to, and they claim to be a celestial of some sort. So I've been trying to engage these powers in conversation to get a greater insight into what they may be all about. And what this has been going on since dawn of time. It happens, and it's recognizable in all mythologies, in all religions, in all occult orders. And something's going on. And as I pointed out in previous shows, something is listening and something is responding, and that becomes very clear. I get messages, including from Setna Comwest, that are very synchronistic, and they're about the same topic. So I'll get something in my meditations, and I need to think about it sometimes. So I'll shelve it, and I'll get back to thinking about it when I have time to think about it. And then I'll start getting conversations with Comwest and conversations with other people. Now Comwest knows some of them, but before he didn't. And I'll get the same information from them,
Hmm.
sometimes even the same words from them. So through the synchronicity, something is communicating. And if I choose to ignore it longer, the synchronicities increase and they become more bold in nature. So there is something there. There is something that communicates. What it is, for all my years of looking at it, for seeking it, for communicating with it, I really don't know. And that's the honest answer. And so I want to continue this conversation a lot until we've really, really looked at it and really, really explored all these different interpretations of it. So thank you.
Yep. My pleasure, Hercules. Thank you for letting me ramble on for a while.
Oh, you shared great insights and great information and great wisdom. And now, Setna Comwest, you two are an interactor with entities of all sorts, from
Yes.
space beings to gods to ghosts. So you two, like me, are an entity haunted individual from birth to death, and so your insight is valuable as well.
Lately, I have been working with North African and Persian spirits. The North African spirits are called Sorel. These are a secret society. They are supposedly alien. The Persian and Middle Eastern ones are called jinn, more contemporarily called genie, but they are jinn. They are claim to be from another dimension as well as another planet. These beings, they say, come from either the belt of Orion, different planets and stars, and also from the near the planet, the star Sirius. The Sorel are also connected somehow or other with the Neteru, who are the ancient Egyptian deities. And there are also things called nomarchs, which are governors of different parts of quadrants and dimensions and space and such. Nomarch is also the name of a governor in modern, or I should say, material Egyptian times and ancient times. They were called nomarchs or gnomes in a way. I have been in touch with several nomarch, several jinn, and several sorel. The one that I know who is my guide, his name is Soran Siti. I work with both as a trance medium, and I have, unlike others, I've had success with him, documented by the Edgar Cayce Center, and also Dr. I'm going to lose it. Robert Sampson from Programs for Human Development in Connecticut, which I don't know if he's still around, but I worked with him in the 80s. And Dr. Ted Bennett in Long Island, and also in Connecticut, and also in the Cayce Center in Virginia Beach. So these things I was actually tested on, brainwave charts and things. For instance, with Dr. Ted Bennett, he asked Soran Siti what his past life was, and he was laughing and thought the whole thing was a joke, because he's actually a parapsychologist, but also first and foremost a psychologist. He thought perhaps I was one of my other selves, shall we say, because I was not conscious. Brainwave charts showed that it was a different brain activity. So it's not me, it was my body, but somebody else's head, as it were, inside. I told him the name, well, Soran Siti told him the name of an aviator who died in World War II and where he was buried in France after his plane was shot down by the Nazis. And Dr. Bennett went to France near the field in Rouen where he was, and they found a gravestone with the name of the aviator on it and the date that he died, which was exactly the date that Soran Siti told him. He then started to ask other things, and Soran Siti said some rather obscene things and told him what he could do with hippopotamus.
Okay.
So he said, I've told you enough. I will now speak to someone else. Be gone. And he was he's a rather obnoxious spirit, but he said that he is called one of these nomarchs, and also in certain other times a sorel. He considered himself a dimension of what's called Anansi the spider in West African traditions, not only shown as a man, but shown as a spider. And I don't mean Peter Parker. He was not that kind of Spider-Man, sort of he said that as a tarantula kind of a being, or a web slinger, that he was about 4 feet tall, and he would be visible or invisible as mood took. He also took the form of a man, a leopard, and the bird is called a kite. I believe it's a form of a hawk. But he changes shapes. And Hercules, as you said, many of these beings change shapes. Well, this is a personal declaration, a personal testimonial that I know that not all of these things are hoopla or nonsense. Many of them can actually be documented, as I was documented. They worked on other things and other ways. I do have one other spirit I worked with whose name was simply Sorel. He claimed to be an alien. People heard voices around me while this was being contacted, while I was meditating. They heard names, very much like when you would be looking for spirits or ghosts when they use those machines. Tim, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, yeah, like the spirit boxes.
Right, the spirit boxes. Well, they actually got whole words and whole phrases from these beings, and they could hear them resonating, kind of like, you know, how they have sense around in the 80s in the theaters where things would bounce off the walls. Well, this is what it was. And we're sitting in a elementary school classroom where no such things could be set up. It was an actual, you know, now I'm here, now I'm there kind of thing. And people were confused. Other people were hearing messages in their head and they would say certain things. Um, Nothing like the world coming to the end. That's a bit nonsense. But we did get certain events. We knew births of children, deaths of people, um, movements of the earth, earthquakes that were going to happen. We did come up with those things and it was accurate. So I can speak to that. Um, my sister is also called a Pythia, a Delphic oracle, which is a person who worships Apollo. No, she doesn't sniff methane these days or chew on laurel leaves, but she was able to predict a rather interesting thing through her guide, who is also called Pythos. Um, my next door neighbor was to be delivered, she was told, of a girl baby. Well, my sister looked at her and said, no, no, you're going to have a fifth boy, and he's going to be a Taurus, not a Gemini. The girl was to be a Gemini. The woman had had ultrasound. They couldn't find the baby's parts, shall we say, because the way the baby was turned around. But the man said, the doctor, based on the baby's shape, that it was a girl, excuse me. And my sister said, no, 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 I've been told it's a girl. I mean, a boy. And about, well, 2 months later, they took another ultrasound. The child turned around. He was a boy. His name is Mark. I think he's in his 50s now. Uh, yeah, early 50s. So the mother was very depressed. She wanted another daughter. She had had 4 boys already. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And she was told this by a spirit guide who considered herself an alien priestess of Apollo. So some of these things can be accurate. Then you get nutty people who are going to, you know, claim the end of the world or, you know, bad events or crazy things. And they only seem to think, and I'm sure you see it, Tim, they only see negative things all the time. Crashes, stock market destructions, death. You know, they never see anything good or any positive. Is it because they're not looking for that? Or is the deceiver giving them those things for them to think about something else? This I don't know. But I do know that I come from an ancient tradition. I follow those things. I follow the Neteru, which is the ancient Egyptian deities, which I don't look at as deities. I look at them as watchers. I do believe that they came from the stars. I believe the ancient Egyptians were shocked, didn't know what to think of them. They were a gold skin tone, and that they were a different race of being and are a different race of being. And that, you know, we attribute all the gods and goddesses of ancient times as immortal. Well, we don't see them die, do we? So I told this to Hercules a while ago and I thought about it. The movie I guess it was in the 90s, Zorro. Remember that one? Anyway, Anthony Hopkins played Zorro, the older Zorro. And then all of a sudden, Antonio Banderas is Zorro. And I think the gods and goddesses do the same thing. They wear masks, they have different faces, they change shape. And I think as one gets older, that they give that mask or shape to another deity, a younger one, so that they will take on the mantle. It's kind of an interesting theory. It's my own theory, but I think it's true. I think, you know, nothing lives forever
It's an
except
ancient
Papa.
theory too. The Romans spoke of there being five Zeuses and 44 Herculeses that they knew of.
They say in ancient Britain there were 9 Merlins, that they just kind of just evolved out of nowhere. You know, well, they say, you know, the lake, whatever, from the Lady of the Lake, but that this is true. And there's a whole mythology about Ra. how he was getting old and starting to drool and everything. And then Isis cast a spell on him with a snake and got his powers from him. And by using the ritual that they used, she found his energy, his seed inside herself. And when she gave birth to Horus, rather than looking like her husband Osiris, he was a falcon-headed god, which we believe, some of us, was the cloning, as it were, of Ra. And she didn't actually give birth. Ra's energy was transferred within her, somehow his consciousness, what have you. And so that Horus is Ra Heru. He is both of those. He may be in Horus's body, but he's Ra. And so that, that's an alien concept, I think, also. I don't know if other gods and goddesses did the same thing. Perhaps Hercules himself has over the years. And certainly we have that with the Dalai Lama, do we not? That they say he's been the same being for thousands and thousands of years.
Incarnating in different bodies. Yes, I believe that also.
Well, there is a movie, a delightful little movie that was done in, I think, the early 2000s called The Littlest Buddha, in which they're looking for their Lama, the head of the temple, and he's died, and they have his rice bowl, and they go and they look for him. And what happened was his soul split into 4 different beings, and each one of them knew part of his energy. Each one had very, very specific things they knew, and all together was, I think, 2 boys and 2 girls. They knew everything about him, but not one of them knew all of it. So I think they say that they think the soul split. And I'm wondering if that's possible. I've never heard such a thing. But the way you get there's 10 million people who say they're Julius Caesar or Napoleon or Marie Antoinette or President Truman or Teddy Roosevelt, so are they all splitting the souls up? Or are they all experiencing that energy from some higher force that we don't know about yet?
And that's a topic for another show also, because that is a very important thing to look at. We don't know, even though many of us have had experiences that give us some indication, what happens to us when we're no longer here. It remains a mystery. Again, and some of us have played with astral projection, some of us have played with communicating with those who passed on. So we have some inkling, maybe, but we don't actually know. That's the mystery that all of us encounter. So what survives and how if something survives, how it communicates with us is something really worth looking at with an open mind.
Shakespeare said, "The undiscovered country from whose born no travelers returns," etc., from Hamlet. We don't really know everything. We think people, oh yes, there's life after life. And I have done past life regressions and things. I had a girl I worked with several years ago, and I saw that she was thinking about certain things, and she was convinced she was Ankhesenamun, King Tut's wife. And I looked at the energy she was vibrating with, and I didn't see that, but she wanted to be somebody famous. She wanted to be someone that, no one else has claimed to be. She's, oh yes, I'm Ankhesenamun. I said, so what did Ankhesenamun have for breakfast? What did, how many children did Ankhesenamun have? If you're Ankhesenamun, you can answer me. And she said, I don't know. I don't know that. So why don't you know? You are Ankhesenamun, you're saying. And she couldn't answer. And yet on another plane, another situation, I had someone who talked about Marie Louise, the daughter of Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI. And she knew everything there was to know about this little girl. She knew that she had become the Empress, the Grand Duchess in exile, and that she lived in Austria and with her uncle, the king, or the prince, I should say. And she knew where she knew what she had for breakfast. She knew what spoons they used. She knew everything there was to know. She convinced me that she knew something more than you could have in writing. I was very impressed. So that's in one of my notebooks. I have never written anything about it, but I have past life, people with those kind of past life experiences. And how do you explain those things when it's so complicated and so obvious that this person may actually have known who that was? And these are things that aren't written. We know what she had we knew what she ate because the spoons are there. We knew what kind of an egg she had or what kind of chocolates she liked. We knew these things because they're written, but they're not given to the general public. So you got to know that somehow.
Again, that's another show, but just think about this. Humans can be possessed by cast off fragments of people.
I agree.
Become parasitic. So we carry these parasites around, and in every occultist training, there comes a point where they're taught how to extricate these things or utilize them or whatever. But these cast off fragments that aren't the person know everything about the person since the time that they possessed the person. So you can have multiple people claiming to be someone. They might have not been that person originally, but they might have attached themselves to that person for a particular reason for a certain length of time, in which case they would know a lot of private things about the person. And
this young lady knew a great deal. I'm going to say I was very impressed with her.
So I'll just throw that there as something to think about. But yeah, these are all fascinating things to explore, and I'm looking forward to exploring them. And again, identity is such a strange thing too, because we change our concept of who we are as we move through life. I've changed my name several times, because I've had different versions of myself experiencing certain things, and then that life is done. And then there's a new life I want to explore and so forth. And other people do that as well. So there's that too. Am I four people because I've had four main incarnations in this life? And each one was different enough.
I changed my name for professional reasons several times. I was Richard Niles when I was a makeup artist for a while because there already was a Michael with my last name in the union, and I had to make up another name, so I made up Richard Niles. I always thought I should have been a Richard, not a Michael.
And Richard Niles, even though it's like you, it's a different version of you, with the volume turned up in some places and the volume turned down in other places.
Well, the odd thing was when I joined Georgette Klinger, I had to go back to being a Michael because they had a Richard. I said, wait a minute. And the guy with my name had died. So I got my name back. I became Michael again.
So those type of things need to be considered as well. And the Egyptians, and you follow the Neteru or the Neger, as some people call them, they have four souls, I believe, that they talk about. Or they have several souls.
Parts of the souls, yes.
So those are things that we can look at as well. And unfortunately, we're approaching the end of today's conversation. Are there any last words you'd like to leave with people, Tim?
Well, I just want to add to what you two were just talking about. The certain Polynesian cultures believe that we have seven different souls or spirits within us, and that when you die, all of them split up and go go to their own separate directions. And like the lowest part of those souls, the ones with like almost like animalistic type of intelligence, are what we would call like poltergeists and things like that. So I always thought that was an interesting concept, and they also believe, like you said, that fragments of these split off souls, can go and possess other people, for certain amounts of time. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you so much, sir. And how can people reach you and enter the strange new worlds that you provide access to?
Sure. Well, you can find all of my books on probably Amazon.com would be the best way to do it. You can also find some of them at your favorite local bookstore or library. And please patronize both. If you have a local bookstore, then definitely patronize it. I live in a community that unfortunately doesn't have one. We do have a library though, so go to them as often as you possibly can. Now, as for Amazon, just type in my name, Tim R. Swartz, and all of my books will come tumbling out for your reading pleasure. Both print and ebooks are available. Right now, our latest book is Mimics the Others Among Us, Hercules. You have an excellent chapter in that book. We're currently working on a new book about the mysteries of time. And I will let everyone know that both Hercules and Michael have a chapter in this new book coming out. So I'll keep everyone apprised as it continues to develop, and hopefully we'll have it published sometime this spring is what we're hoping for. Let's keep our fingers crossed. And of course, my website is conspiracyjournal.com. Don't type that in on Facebook. They won't allow that for some reason. I guess the word conspiracy is something that they don't like. But I always like to say that we don't have any of that political stuff. It's all just the fun things like ghost UFOs and the things we like to talk about on this show. But again, that's conspiracyjournal.com, where we've got all the weird news and information that they don't want you to know.
And I will add before we go to Michael that it has been a lifelong dream of mine to be part of the intrepid band of investigators led by Tim Swartz and the late Tim Beckley that write these great tales in these anthology books with lurid covers and lurid titles. So that was a lifelong ambition of mine, and I'm very honored to be part of that adventure. So thank you for that. And now, without further ado, Michael.
Okay, well, very simple. You can get me on Facebook under Phone a Wizard, which is me. I'm the wizard. Or you can get me at Michael K. Waterman on Facebook, or MK Waterman at iCloud.com. You can get me, write to me, Michael K. Waterman, at 1699 Chatham, Chatham Parkway, Savannah, Georgia now, 31405, and that's apartment or just unit number 1523A. I have to remember that because it's new. Or you can call me, Phone a Wizard will listen, 516-650-3691. And yes, that's my Long Island number, but I have too many contacts to change it, so I've still got it.
Very awesome. Thank you to you both. You're both incredibly awesome, and I'm honored to be speaking with you, and I'm glad that you're here. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend and a wonderful week ahead, and I wish you success in all your endeavors. Thank you so very much, and thank you to our audience. You'll be listening to this on the morrow on YouTube, and while you're there, check out our other UFO entity encounter programs. Until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.